So, welcome back to another video. I thought I'd try something a little bit different today. I sat there and thought, can I really do the 5 things learned video? And yes, I could do. Then I thought, what would we really talk about? We'd moan about Sterling's form. We'd talk about how the midfield didn't turn up. Maybe Fernandinho looking his age a little bit. Maybe the importance of Rodri. Maybe the fact that after the irony of the comments midweek about the attendance turning up and the team not turning up. I thought we could talk about all that. Or I could do something a little bit different today. And I decided to do that instead. And now the title of this video is why the Southampton game means nothing. And obviously this is my opinion. It does sort of mean something. Of course it does. It means we've dropped points and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to elaborate what I meant today on this title and why, in my personal opinion, maybe we need to calm down a little bit and then come back in a couple of weeks and reassess. Now, I'm not saying entirely that the game literally means nothing. I mean, in the context of what I'm about to talk about, basically. So, yesterday was an incredibly disappointing performance. I can't really sugarcoat that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have no interest in doing that, and it doesn't benefit me or anyone. It was a bad day at the office. Too many players didn't turn up, and it was incredibly poor. I could repeat that and bang that drum loads of times, but I guess what I always try and do on this channel, and hopefully you appreciate this, is try and look at the bigger picture and try and work out where we're going and what this could potentially mean. And my personal honest assessment on yesterday's game is that ultimately it kind of means nothing. And what I mean by that is that this is not the game that we can judge or define our season so far. And it is not the game that we can judge or even define our form at the moment. It isn't that game because it isn't. It simply isn't. We've got a run of games coming up that will be much, much more indicative of our quality this season than a difficult game, potentially running on tired legs against a Southampton team that had an incredibly good performance. Yesterday was frustrating, but is it the barometer that we can use it to judge our season against or our quality? It probably isn't, if we're being totally honest. Now, for me, the real barometer of our season and what it could potentially mean will be this next run of games. Now, I've seen people saying, oh, we could be out the title race if we lose to Chelsea and Liverpool, which is very, very possible. But I guess the point I'm making is that very sentence shows you the games that we should actually be thinking about, really, are those 2 games. And yesterday's game, well, ultimately, it won't really make a difference. If we'd won the game yesterday and then lost to Chelsea and Liverpool, we'd still be feeling negative. We would do. We all know this is very, very true. If we'd drawn the game, which we did, and then lost those 2 games, we'd be feeling negative. If we'd lost the game and then lost 2 games, we'd be feeling negative. The point I'm making is that the outcome of those two games really dictates our mood and confidence going into the rest of the season. So while yesterday was a bad day, I'm here to say, give this team a little bit of space and give them a little bit of give them a chance essentially to rectify their wrongs after yesterday's game, because everyone can have a bad day at the office. And to me, it didn't really matter what yesterday's result did, because I was always going to judge our future hopes and aspirations on these next couple of games. And even then, that won't be the fullest picture of the season, but it'll be a relatively good indicator of how difficult or how realistic we can be in terms of expecting trophies over the coming months as a Manchester City fan. So these games, looking forward to it. Now, the reason I'm not really panicking yet is because I do feel they are proud professionals. Usually when we have a bad game, more than often than not, we do follow it up with the answers. And people can sit here right now and panic over the Chelsea game, and that would be a very, very, very fair thing to do. And go, we've lost the last 3 games in a row against Chelsea. My argument would be always is that when you've got a team as good as Manchester City, and likewise as good as Chelsea, as good as Liverpool, I would never ever be surprised if any of those teams individually win a game on a certain day, because they are 3 of the best teams in the world. It's as simple as that. And the point is, we are one of the best teams in the world too, as well as Chelsea and Liverpool. Chelsea and Liverpool, if they lost one of those games against us, their fans would be like, well, it's Man City, they're a really good team. And sometimes we forget that other side of it. Sometimes we forget just how good we are as well. I'm not saying we are favourites going into these games, but the point I'm making is that we are a lot better than we give ourselves credit for sometimes. Even without a striker, we are still a very good team, and teams do explain and understand a defeat against us with the phrase, well, they're Manchester City, they're very, very good. So why can't we feel that way about us, basically? What I'm saying is that even though I am nervous about this game, we lost 3 in a row to them, Chelsea will still be equally as nervous as us. I would not be surprised if we found a way to get 4 points minimum from these 2 games. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'd generally be surprised. No, and why? Because we have lots of latent quality. And all of a sudden, that picture, after the Southampton game, it paints a very, very different scenario, doesn't it? All of a sudden, that anxiety and that frustration, it disappears. All of a sudden, we feel like we can beat anyone and we can win the league again. So the point I'm making here really is that Southampton game, it was disappointing, but let's look ahead to the actual. Let's not basically use that as a barometer where we're at so far. It was one of those days, man. It could happen to absolutely everyone. Everyone's been so positive about United, but they dropped points against Southampton as well. And I'm not trying to be a happy clapper. I'm just trying to explain why right now the alarm bells aren't ringing for me personally. They're just not. They are not, because I don't think we've played our full hand yet, and I don't think we've had the games yet that we really define our current form and aspirations. Liverpool is going to be really difficult. Chelsea are going to be really difficult. I'm vaguely confident about Chelsea simply because I feel eventually something's got to give. They beat us 3 times in a row, but to me that motivates the players as well. You've got to remember that. Doesn't mean we'll win. But what I'm saying is they are professionals with pride and ego as well. They don't want to lose 4 times in a row to Chelsea. They also want to get back to them for inflicting their most painful defeat in their professional careers potentially on them. The Champions League final absolutely massively affected the players. So you're damn right they've got something to prove. You're damn right Guardiola has as well. Those players will be up for it. That very loss, even though it's terrifying, also is the very thing that motivates our players to want to get back up on the horse and go again. It does. That's the thing. We forget that these winners, they're more successful in what they do in their career than we are, if we're being totally honest. And these are professionals at the elite level of the game. So as much as it's terrifying, you've got to remember our players are also terrifying to the opposition, and we are capable of doing very good things. So all I'm saying basically is that we should keep our heads, not worry too much about yesterday, presume, as it often does, is that we'll correct the course and get back to our form. And let's come back to this assessment of our season post Chelsea, PSG, Liverpool. I tell you what, the funny and fickle thing about football fans is that we can be on cloud 9 one day and then one bad performance and we can be right down in the pits, or one good performance and we feel like we can be the best team in the world. That is the fickle nature of football, and I've been there as well. But right now, I guess what I'm trying to say is trying to call for a little bit of composure and a little bit of clarity, basically. Manchester City aren't a perfect side, but no side is perfect. The one thing I will say about Man City is that we have less problems and, more quality than most football teams, and that's pretty much all I can ever ask for, really. I was very disappointed with yesterday. I genuinely thought we were lacklustre and tired, but usually after a performance like that, I try and look for explanations and reasons, and I think, is it lack of quality? Probably not. We have the quality players, we know that. Do our players not care? No, of course the players do care. Did they not try? No, they seem to try. It didn't happen, but they seem to try. And then you think, well, if it's not those things, it's not a quality, lack of trying, or care thing, maybe it's something else. Maybe they were a little bit leggy. Maybe it was one of those things where too many people had a bad day. Maybe they did take their eye off the ball a little bit, which can happen to even the very best of athletes and sports people. Maybe it's all those factors. Maybe it was also a combination of Southampton playing really, really well. I guess the point I'm making is it's very, very normal. And I would implore and encourage Manchester City fans not to get too pessimistic. I'm not saying you're wrong to feel pessimistic for what it's worth. You do you. You have your own opinions and you have your own judgments and all that kind of stuff. This is just my YouTube channel and my personal opinion why I'm not panicking yet, because we have too much quality for me to write the season off. Those 2 games are the ones where we should panic if they go wrong. And this game against Southampton, no, it was disappointing, but ultimately that is not the game that's going to define our season. I mean, if you go back and we're 2 points off the title race at the end of the season, come back and correct me then. But I will very much worry about that later, if that makes sense. But I don't think anyone's going to talk about a Southampton game at any point again this season. It'll be the Chelsea game, it'll be the Liverpool game, it'll be upcoming games against United and so on. It'll be games later on in the season that will really, really judge us. Right now, Foden is just trying to find his form. Kevin De Bruyne is trying to find his form after injury. Of course, as well, yesterday, it looked like we missed Rodri a lot more than we realised, with Fernandinho showing a little bit of age in midfield. Of course, we're missing 2 of our most progressive passes from defence in Stones and Laporte as well. Zinchenko not there as well. Very good in the build-up, and too many players had a bad day yesterday. Maybe some players are out of form, but I guess these are all the learning blocks which will play their way into form, Sterling did not do himself any favours yesterday, we're being honest, and I'm not really sure many of the forwards did yesterday either. I don't think Gundogan did, and he came back into the team as an attacking midfielder. I wouldn't be surprised if certain players... we're at the point now, essentially. I guess the point I'm making is that we're trying to find our best 11 this season, and these players have to really force their way into Guardiola's thinking. So it all becomes trial and error. And whoever plays against Chelsea, they are going to be massively, massively up for it. I am nervous about the game, don't get me wrong. And I do fear the worst, but I would not be surprised at any outcome. If Manchester City lose, wouldn't be surprised Chelsea are great. If we draw, wouldn't be surprised the two teams are very good. If Man City win, wouldn't be surprised because we're great. So remember that, essentially, before we lose our heads. And I'm not trying to tell anyone what to think. I really would never, ever do that. But I thought I'd try something a little bit different today and go for this. Because the 5 Things Learned video is fine, but I think we know what we learned from that. Today, I wanted to talk about why I think the Southampton game, ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean as much as we think. It's one game, and you cannot judge a season or a story off one game of football. You can't. You really can't. A run of games, yes. Two of the biggest away games of the season. That gives you an indicator. But right now, let's keep our heads. Let's remember that this Manchester City side had proven us wrong before. Flash back a year ago and look where we were in the table. Look what we were achieving or not achieving back then. And yes, I know the teams around us have improved, but we're still also very good. And they were trying to improve to our level, ultimately. Believe in this team. Believe in the manager. Hope that they play better. Believe in the quality of the players. And fingers crossed, we're sat here in a couple of weeks' time. And everything I've said doesn't look entirely naive. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Big love to my Patreon producer, Scott Denemy. Every single one he is. Go and watch my match reaction from yesterday if you want to. My Keiki video as well, or Keiki. I can't pronounce it. It's going to be called Keiki forever. I'm sorry, mate. Like, comment, subscribe. Get me to 60k. I'm getting closer and closer and closer. You're all awesome. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this style of video. And I'll catch you very, very soon.